was recording.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Is it recording?
It is now.
It is now.
Okay, great. Okay, let's keep on moving. So our agenda tonight, so we typically split the 2-hour meeting into a public outreach hour, followed by a board meeting hour. And so these are the topics that, that will be covered during each time period. We have we always start our meetings with Denver Police as they are on the clock for these meetings. And then our other community partners typically share a few words with us. And our invited speakers this evening are Beth Nobles from Sand Creek Greenway and Brian Weber from the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities. We'll have some time for general discussion and Q&A to make it worth your while for coming to a public meeting where you can hopefully get some questions answered if you have them. Then we'll go into the board meeting where we're going to start with public comments and then just go straight into business where we're going to talk about triaging requests that we've had for speaking at our meetings, some letters of support that we're going to be considering writing for organizations, 2 of them being Sand Creek Greenway and the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities. We're going to talk about website feedback, and I encourage each of you to have a look at our current website, which is centralparkunitedneighbors.com. All right, and let us know what you think. We just transitioned to that in the past couple of weeks, and Carol will be giving us intra and inter-community communication updates. We'll go into some committee meeting updates, and then we'll talk about strategic planning for the BOR, which is missing a D. Should be board. Sorry about that. It's my own typo. All right, next slide, please. Okay, and so Brian, do you want to just take the slides down while our community partners are talking, just so that we have a bigger there. Thank you. And so I'll toss this to, I see Kevin Hines and then Lieutenant Hines, and then I know Officer Kara Jenkins is here as well. So I don't know which one of you is going to speak first, but you have the floor.
All right, well, thank you. I hope everybody's doing well and having a good start to the new year. For anybody on the meeting I haven't met yet, I am Kevin Hines, and I'm a lieutenant with the Denver Police Department responsible for the Central Park and Northfield areas in District 5. Just to give you guys kind of an update on things that are going on right now that might concern you. One of our big areas of concern lately has been street racing. We've had a lot of complaints about street racing in the neighborhoods. Unfortunately, that's an issue we're grappling with throughout the metro area. In fact, Kira and I were just on a regional meeting about that today. Just to let you know, we are making some progress on that issue. We've made a number of arrests in the last few weeks. In some ways, that does feel like a drop in the bucket because we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of people versus sometimes a handful to a dozen or so arrests. However, we are able to pursue public nuisance abatement charges against a lot of these individuals, which can end up in seizures of their vehicles and things that are used in these crimes. So it does send a pretty strong message to these groups. We're also starting to look and see if there's avenues we can go about pursuing organized crime angles against some of the sponsors of these events. For those of you who aren't familiar with the underlying problem with these street racing groups, a lot of what we deal with is social media driven events where a group will sponsor one of these meetups and we'll go and illegally do burnouts and stuff, trespass at warehouses, and then go out and race on the city streets. So we are working on that. We had an operation a week ago, one before that. We have one coming up again soon. But one thing I'll ask of any of the neighbors, if you guys do see illegal racing activity and stuff taking place in the community, please call it into the Denver Police Department so we can get some of our resources in the area to address it. Other than that, a lot of our crime metrics are trending in the right direction at the moment. We are still struggling to some degree with auto thefts, as I spoke about at the last couple of meetings. In terms of events that are coming up, I'll turn this over to Kiera. I think she's probably got some events she can mention to you, and any other updates you want to add, Kiera.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Just two events coming up. We've got the commanders meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. I will put the virtual invite in the chat so you guys can copy that down. The commander will be presenting the the crime stats for the last 28-day period. And then for those of you that are involved in Neighborhood Watch, we're going to be doing another Neighborhood Watch meeting February 4th. And that's going to be a daytime meeting. We're switching off every other month at 10:30 a.m. I will also add that in the chat. And then one last thing I wanted to add, I know I've sent it out to some of you all, is that we have a new traffic officer, Officer Pollard, who focuses his efforts all throughout District 5 enforcing traffic control, speeding, parking complaints, other things like that in the area. So if you have any concerns regarding that, I will put his email in the chat so you can email him directly. I know he's been working on trying to find school zones and things of concern. So if you guys have any of those, definitely you can either send them to me or email him directly. That's all I have.
Thank you. All right, are there any questions for Denver Police?
Yes, I have a question. I've been on the, what they call it, the one of the websites where neighbors are talking about things that are happening in the area. And the last couple of days, they've been talking about locks being popped off their car doors.
Can you repeat that? What about car doors? I'm sorry.
They're popping off the locks off of the car doors. And I told them that that means that their car is being prepped to be stolen that night or broken into, and to watch them, but they didn't. When I suggested it, I told them contact the police to let them know so they can be watching that area. They didn't. So quite a few cars got broken into. So how are you guys going to be handling that part as far as when neighbors, and they actually had a video of a white car stopping at each car?
Well, that's certainly something we investigate. Those can be, instances like that can be either criminal mischief, attempted trespass to a vehicle, or an attempted vehicle theft, depending on what we see. The big thing I recommend is anytime you have something like that happen, make sure you report it to us. It, for one, gives us a chance to investigate it, and secondarily, it lets us know where crime's occurring in the district so that folks like me can arrange the deployment of our resources to focus on those areas. And I did see a few of those reports come across. So I think some of them came through as criminal mischief reports. I don't know if I can pull that up while I'm on the meeting right now, but so some of those are being reported. Certainly, if you know of a neighbor who has a video of something of evidentiary value like that, if they haven't submitted it to us, just tell them to call into the District 5 station and ask to speak to somebody in investigations, and we'll arrange to get a copy of that video from them because that could help us solve the crime. And in this case, it sounds like solve a pattern of them.
Okay.
And thanks for letting me know about that too.
Okay.
Lieutenant Jack Seward, thank you for being with us again this evening. I appreciate you seeing you each month. Question for you regarding texting a tip versus calling the police. I heard a story the other day of a individual who saw someone breaking into someone else's car, and they said, well, it's all right, I texted a tip. So I'm just curious when the right time to text a tip is and when the right time to call 911 is.
In that case, that's the right time to call 911. So text to tip is not monitored quite the same way that 911 is. You know, at least from our standpoint in the district, we get the text to tip report at the end of the month. Now, I do think dispatch can do some stuff with the texting, but I would certainly say if you see a crime in progress, call 911. If you have a lead on a crime, like a cold case where you say, hey, you know, I saw this. For example, a case like this where it's like, hey, my neighbor has a video of this guy that was stealing stuff the other day or trying to break into cars. That's a time to use text to tip. But if you see a crime in progress, pick up the phone and call 911.
Thank you. And second question for you is, I got a note from someone the other day concerned about individuals parking in the parking lots in the various parks here in the neighborhood, and then those vehicles sticking around in those parks either overnight or very late into the evening. So I'm wondering if you can, I assume those parking lots are like the public street, or are there restrictions for how long someone can park in a park's parking lot? I wonder if you could touch on that.
So a lot of times the stuff that, if you're talking in like Denver parks, a lot of those enforcements are handled either by right-of-way or the park rangers. However, we can address those complaints if there's something illegal happening there. Parks are closed off the top of my head. I'm trying to remember. I think it's 11 p.m. I have to double check the times again. And so there shouldn't be vehicles parked there overnight. I'd have to double check park regs to see if that is actually a violation for being parked there at that time. A lot of times it is signed. If it's in violation of a sign, obviously they're parking illegally. Certainly if that's something you're seeing that there's, if somebody has a complaint about it, feel free to have them give us a call and we'll look into it and see if it can be addressed. That's another one of those things where having a traffic officer at our disposal is useful, because they're always up on the latest regulations on all of that stuff, where I sometimes get rusty on the little nuances of each individual parking law and things of that nature.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just wondering if they are like homeless and that's where they choose to park, how would you guys handle something like that?
Well, one of the things we like to see with people who are experiencing homelessness is that we try to offer them resources. We have a officer, Jared Fair, assigned to District 5, who handles homeless specific issues as his entire job. So one of the things he does is work with people in the community who are experiencing homelessness to try to find them resources, shelter options, and things like that to help them get on their feet. There are times where we do have to make people move because they're camping in areas we can't have them camped, or they're otherwise illegally occupying a property. But certainly our larger goal is to try to help people find a road to being housed again, as opposed to being on the street and constantly in that cycle. So Officer Jared Fair works a lot with people when we have those kind of complaints. He's one of the ones who addresses issues we get with the RV parking out in the neighborhoods too. So from an enforcement standpoint, if it's something illegal, we do have to address it with time, but it's not generally something where we're going to go and throw somebody out in the cold just because they're experiencing a tough housing situation at the time.
One last question. With January 31st coming up and evictions is going to start happening February 1st, are you guys prepared to have your list current as to where there are open spaces for families and people who have been evicted?
Well, I don't know that we've anticipated a big demand in growth in shelter space, but that's a fair consideration. We do always have to keep up with the shelters on what's going on, because on any given day or any given week, shelter status changes. Some of that affected by weather, some of that by other circumstances like you mentioned. So that's actually a good point, though, with the nuances of the way the laws work throughout the pandemic. There probably will be some more evictions coming up, and that's something we should keep an eye on.
I thought the eviction moratorium was extended beyond January 31st, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I'm not positive on that myself. So
I know originally it was, Regina, but I believe that it's been extended both at the state level and federally with the last.
I normally get those type of updates, and I've been checking my email on and off today and haven't seen anything. I do know that they did get some more federal grants in to help these people, and that's all I know. But thank you.
Well, thanks for bringing that to our attention. We'll at least look into that.
Okay, one quick question, hopefully, about street racing, and then I'll see if there are any other questions after that. Art, you mentioned that you can charge the people who are doing the street racing with public nuisance, but has DPD considered charging the property owners where it's happening because they're not taking proactive steps to prevent it from happening?
Well, in many cases, the owners of these properties are taking proactive steps. A lot of them have trespass agreements in place with the Denver Police Department, which is actually one of the tools we're using to be able to address the street racers. That's how we've made a number of the arrests for trespassing that we've dealt with. A lot of the businesses, at least in District 5, are not happy with the street racers. One of them had about $12,000 in damage done to their parking lot. We've asked businesses where possible to secure their lots at night so that people can't gather in them. Unfortunately, a number of these businesses run 24 hours a day or have shipments coming in at odd hours. And so their business model doesn't really support having the lots secured. But that's something Kiara has worked with these business owners. And Kiara, I don't know if you could chime in off the top of your head. This may not be a question you can answer without preparation, but I would say we've had probably half a dozen or a dozen businesses sign on with trespass agreements in the last year. Do you have any idea on numbers on that?
I do not have numbers, but of the recent locations where we have evidence of this happening, every single business has requested what's called a CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. We've gone out there and walked the premise and given them suggestions, which they've all worked towards and upped their security, and they've all done no trespass. So we haven't really had anybody give us any pushback on cooperating on this issue.
Okay. All right, thank you. Are there any more questions for DPD? Okay, I'm going to go on to a new community partner, and from the top on my screen, I see Lily Kosmiski from the Denver Public Library, so I'll go to her next.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Lily Kosmiski, librarian at the Sam Gary branch of the Denver Public Library. The library is still not open to the public in terms of the building being open. We are outside on nice days, providing outside table services, and curbside, which is actually expanding next week. We will be available on Monday. We're currently closed, and also on Saturday till 5. That's all that's really going on with us, but it's also Winter of Reading. I'm sharing that in the chat. Winter of Reading is our adult reading program, unlike Summer of Reading for kids, and you can read and do various activities and get prizes. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Are there any questions for Lily on behalf of the Denver Public Library? Okay, thank you. All right, and let's see. I see Eric Herbst from Northeast Transportation Partners.
Yeah, hi everyone. Eric Herbst, and it's actually Northeast Transportation Connections.
Sorry.
So I need to send you that update to maybe change that for the next meeting, but no big deal. So we are the transportation nonprofit in Northeast Denver. Our mission is to reduce congestion, improve air quality. So that means we help people navigate RTD, biking routes, bike access. We set up carpool networks with companies to get employees to carpool together. We also have a school pool program to get parents to carpool with other students, basically, to get students to school. And then we work on teleworking and teleworking policy. And then currently we've been working with a lot of our essential workers in the region. So we have a shuttle that runs to help get employees to and from UPS from the A line. And then we've been working on our 4th transportation screen at essential businesses. So that's a screen that kind of tells their employees all the options they have and the resources available as far as transportation goes. We just finished up a successful e-bike program with the Colorado Energy Office in Bicycle Colorado, where we got 13 e-bikes out to essential workers who were low income. And that was to basically help roll out a larger spring e-bike program. We're going to be applying for that spring e-bike program. So we'll hopefully be sharing more here in a few months about that program. And then we're really just trying to figure out what the plan looks like for the rest of the year. So trying to figure out if we can have events again, start doing more community work with transportation, and then also just trying to get people comfortable with taking transit again, and carpooling again, and then biking again. So kind of trying to figure out what this year looks like, but that's kind of some updates on what we've been working on so far. And that's kind of all I have, unless anybody has questions.
Yeah, this is the way you do Zoom meetings too, right?
No, I don't do Zoom meetings.
Okay, well, this is the way you do
Okay, I think we're picking up some background noise, but I think that that's something else. Okay, all right. Thank you, Eric. And I apologize for for getting the last name of your organization incorrect, and after years of participating in these meetings. Okay, and I'm still looking, and I don't know that I see anyone from Councilman Herndon's office or the MCA. Am I mistaken?
Hi, Amanda. This is Amanda Schultz.
Oh, you're right there. Sorry. Okay.
Sorry, I'm on a device that doesn't have a camera tonight. And I don't blame you. The fact that you can keep all of these acronyms somewhat straight in your head is impressive. I feel like sometimes government and community acronyms are a second language. For those of you who maybe I haven't met yet, I'm Amanda Schultz. I work for Councilman Chris Herndon, our city council representative for Central Park. I don't have any specific announcements from our office tonight, but I will be on for the remainder of the meeting. So feel free to hit me up afterward or send a chat, and I will do my best to get some answers for you.
Great, thank you. It's always helpful to have your voice during Q&A later on. Okay, and so our speakers tonight are going to be Beth Nobles from Sand Creek and Brian Weber from the foundation. So I'm going to say, is there anyone else who's here from one of our community partners who I haven't named yet, those two aside? Okay, so Brian, can we go back to the slides for just a second, and then we'll just advance.
Give me 2 seconds, Amanda.
Thanks. Okay, so we will start with Beth Nobles, who's the executive director of the Sand Creek Regional Greenway. The Sand Creek Greenway runs about 2.6 miles through the southern part of the community from Quebec Street down to the edge of the Fitzsimmons campus, and I will let her take it from here.
Thank you, Amanda, and hello, everyone. Thank you for sharing your time with me today. The reason I'm here is I was speaking with the safety committee last week, and they said, you know, you really should come and speak at the monthly meeting. We are seeking your help in hopefully securing a support letter for a grant. The grant is for the Resilient Communities program through Great Outdoors Colorado. We applied this fall, didn't make the cut for funding, but staff said we want you to reapply for the last phase of the grant. So we feel hopeful that we'll get that funding. The purpose of the grant is for Bluff Lake Nature Center and our organization to share a new full-time employee who is a volunteer coordinator. Our own organization does a wide variety of volunteer projects, from on your own projects to group cleanups to civic science to habitat restoration, tree planting. And we're a small organization serving all 14 miles of the Greenway from Aurora through the Central Park neighborhood and into Commerce City to connect to the Platte. we just have 2 employees to do everything that we do, and we really need help to do a better job with volunteerism. We've had a lot of requests for additional projects, and we're at our limit, as is Bluff Lake. So we want to partner together, hire someone who can handle all of this and organize it, market those volunteer efforts, and do a couple different things. One is to provide for management software so we can do a better job running volunteer projects. And for the Greenway, one of our challenges is that we have a few trailheads, but there's a lot, the Greenway needs a lot of help between trailheads. And in some cases, there's a mile or 2. It's hard for folks to get to. So we're looking for funding for an e-bike and a trailer to help get our tools and our equipment to the place where the work needs to take place. So this will help. This funding category is a COVID-related funding category. We've seen a lot of additional activity on the Greenway. People are kind of loving it to death. And so additional help on the volunteer level is really important. And we've been working with Jack and other members of the safety committee on how we work with the rise in urban camping on the corridor. One of the things that we hope to do if we get funding is to develop a volunteer force that's dedicated to doing the hard stuff. And one of those hard tasks is to come in after a professional crew has done biohazard cleanup. When a campsite has been cleaned up, the site is never actually clean. You see a lot of refuse that's left, and we hope to get volunteers to help us make it look like it's clean after the biohazard is done. So that's what we're hoping to do, is to secure your support by getting a support letter to accompany with our grant request. And we will need the letter by the middle of the week, the last week of the month. And I'm happy to answer any questions about this opportunity or the Greenway in general.
Hi, Beth. It's Jeff Horsfall.
Hi, Jeff.
How are you?
Good.
Good. Good to see you. As I understand it, you're applying under the Commerce City umbrella, not necessarily Denver. Is that correct?
We are. Bluff Lake and our organization partnered together first. And we called the GoCo staff and said, how can we get this done? And they said, because of what you want to accomplish, you need to apply under the umbrella of a municipality. And because both of our organizations work very closely with Commerce City in our Generation Wild program, Commerce City handles the administration of that grant too. The GoCo staff suggested that we work directly with Commerce City on this. Commerce City's part of the grant is a little bit different than ours. They also want to hire their first urban ranger. They've never had an urban ranger for any of their trails. And so our Sand Creek section in Commerce City would benefit if we get this grant too for Commerce City. But we're really looking for support from y'all for the volunteer part. That's a shared effort with Bluff Lake and Sand Creek.
So does the fact that it's being submitted through Commerce City prevent any of the volunteer coordinators' activities from taking place in Denver, or the urban ranger from coming? What are the lines in the sand, so to speak?
Sure. For our part, which is half of the new volunteer coordinator and half of the volunteer management program and half of the volunteer supplies, we're covering all 14 miles of the Greenway, Aurora, the Central Park neighborhood of Denver, and Commerce City. The Commerce City Ranger will just stick with Commerce City, but we'll have an additional support for the Greenway that will only benefit the Denver section. And our Denver Urban Rangers will have someone dedicated who will become more knowledgeable on the issues related to urban trails. So the Denver section will have greater support in Commerce City for those issues.
Thanks. One last question. Does Commerce City's urban ranger have different policies or practices than Denver's when it comes to some of these homeless encampments? And can you articulate how that might impact those folks?
Sure, I can't speak to what their internal policies will be, particularly for a new position that's never existed before. But I will tell you, in working with all 3 cities, and that's one of our roles, is to understand how each city is dealing with the range of issues that face urban greenways. Each city does deal with it differently. And so we look at location first and then figure out who's the team that needs to handle an issue and who do we go to. Yes, every city does it a little bit differently. The spirit's all the same, but how you get things done is a little bit different.
So where do they go to apply?
I'm sorry?
Where do they go to apply for the open position you hiring for?
Oh, it will probably be administered through the Bluff Lake Nature Center. We felt that because they have a larger staff, they have more administrative help in handling that. So we have made the decision not to post until we actually know that we have the funding. So if we get the funding, you won't see anything probably until the end of March.
How soon will you, what's the turnaround on hearing about the funding?
Our deadline to get everything together is February 2nd, and that's why we're looking for a support letter by midweek of the last week in January. And then they tell us that we'll know by mid-March. So if it's good news, we'll get that job description out and we'll start posting that job.
Great.
There's a question in the chat, Amanda, about how long the grant will support the new position.
Good question. And then what would be a potential funding source for the person after that? Go on.
Right, that's always a question. It's always a concern. The funding is for 2 years. So it's enough to get some success rolling. And we are already talking to, I have an appointment tomorrow to talk to one of our corporate funders and see if they will commit ahead of time to year 3, taking on a major responsibility for keeping this program going. So that's one of the things that we're really focusing on right now, and who will pick up year 3 and year 4 and year 5, hopefully. But this is full funding for 2 years, and we're already working on what happens next.
Beth, while we have you here, can you touch on I know this, I don't want to interrupt anyone that might still have questions regarding the grant application. So perhaps once everyone's had a chance to ask those questions, touch on the trail paving project that I know is set to start here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so this is the project is something that was funded by the Ballot Initiative in November 2018. We're one of the first projects to receive the large funding. It's actually all Denver Parks and Rec. We're not touching the money at all, but it will complete the master plan for the Greenway. And there will, when the project is done in about 10 months, there will be finally, after 20+ years, a continuously paved pathway through the Denver part of the Greenway. So we know we have lots of dirt spots, and some of them will remain dirt, but for the first time, if you are on a bike with skinny and precious tires, you can get from Commerce City all the way through the Denver section without worrying about running into mud and dirt and gravel and all of that. So we're excited about that. Work has already taken place, but you'll see a shift in the next few weeks that there will be crews starting to work on that project. And Denver Parks and Rec told me last week that the first section that they're hoping to handle is from the Westerly Creek Bridge going west to go by our new mural. So that little connection there to the start of the mural is what they want to work on first. As of last week, that's what they told me, so. Any other questions?
Are they going to protect the mural while they're working beside it?
Well, the mural's in pretty good shape, actually. If you go up to the mural and touch it, you'll feel this rubbery surface. And that's a very expensive coating. It's like $150 a gallon that was painted over that whole mural that will protect it. So yeah, they shouldn't get too close to it, but the mural's pretty well protected.
All right, fair enough. Are there any other questions for Beth Nobles? Thank you for telling us about the paving. That's really exciting that that's happening.
Yeah. We can't wait. Yeah, we're so excited. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your help.
Sure, thanks for being here tonight. And we have, I've circulated and Jack's helped revise a draft letter of support that we'll be voting on in the second part of the meeting. But you don't have to stay on for that. You're welcome to, but you don't have to. Okay, thank you. Brian Weber from the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities.
Hi, I'm Brian Weber from as Amanda said, the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities. It's the former Stapleton Foundation. We have a request of your board tonight, but before I do that, I just wanted to quickly commend you guys for how well you handled the naming issue, both for the organization and the community. Incredibly sensitive issue, and I thought, from an outsider, felt like it was run really well organized, was fair, listened to everybody. I just wanted you to know that was my impression, and I think that was shared by many people. I just wanted you to know that. And thanks for doing that. We were asking, the foundation is working with the architectural firm called LOA, which designed the Northfield the Sandoval campus, where Northfield High School and DSST Conservatory Green is. There's a quadrangle there, and we are working to name it for former CEO of the foundation, Landry Taylor, who unexpectedly passed away almost a year ago. Landry was a former member of the Denver School Board. He also worked for Forest City, the predecessor of Brookfield Properties. He was a really big advocate for the design and the construction of the high school campus, and also Northeast Denver education issues in general. And we think is a really appropriate recognition of Landry. And we would like to see if we can get CPUN to endorse that idea. DPS would like to know that it's not just myself and Tim Haven that want to do this. So I think Amanda has a letter to distribute, and we would really appreciate it if you would support us in this. That was the main thing I wanted to talk with you about. Unless there's any other questions or anything about what we're doing, or happy to talk.
I also just wanted, in inviting you to speak tonight, I wanted to make sure that there was a face to the foundation, because I feel like we've talked a lot about the foundation in recent months, and I just wanted to ensure that we still had, I email you regularly, but just to, this is,
Not sure on the right face, but that's happy to be here.
Well, sure. But so some of the efforts that are going, that are coming from the foundation are in the surrounding communities, and that's headed by Alicia with the Be Well organization. Mm-hmm. And what are there kind of like three prongs of major efforts through the foundation?
Yes, and Eric very, very well described what the Northeast Transportation Connections and what they do. They're part of the foundation. The foundation has basically three major initiatives related to transportation, healthy living, Be Well, and also education and affordable housing. The foundation was formed in '92 by Sam Gary, whose name is on the library here. Sam was an oil man and philanthropist and didn't trust the city to come up with an adequate plan for how to redevelop the airport, Stapleton, and he put a couple $1 million into it and came up with a grand plan, and the city liked it. And since 2000, the foundation has been working on issues related to that plan. As far as education, particularly here, at Central Park, we strongly support the IB for All program at Northfield High School. We've been, on average, the past 3 years, giving them $70,000 to $100,000 a year for fees and registration, exam fees and registration for kids, lower income kids. So those fees are pretty, an exam alone is about $180 each. And we also have been paying for science lab equipment, which they can't afford otherwise. Also professional development training on IB for staff, which has to happen every year if you're going to do this right. And that's one of the main things we're supporting, along with, we do a school grant program for for the 10 schools here at Stapleton, or excuse me, Central Park, pardon me. We do 2 cycles, $5,000 each, so they can get $10,000 a year for projects and programs that are related to their core education program, not bells and whistles, things like tutoring, things like software, new reading programs, hydroponic gardening, diversity and equity training, a whole gamut of things that the local schools are able to do because we can fund that for them. We're also real involved in the Northeast Denver Innovation Zone, which includes 4 schools here at Central Park, Swigert, McAuliffe, Northfield, and Willow Elementary. The Innovation Zone is basically it's a nonprofit that operates independently of the school district. It gives us a lot of leeway on how the schools can function and have the autonomy to do a lot of things that they couldn't do if they were strictly under the district's control. And it's one of 3 of those zones in the DPS, and we serve about 5,000 kids. We also are involved in affordable housing issues, and also, and I support the Northeast Denver Housing Organization, for instance. We support them with their education projects for their students. Those are some examples of things that we do in education for Central Park.
Thank you, Brian. And there's also Montclair, right? They're part of the Northeast.
Montclair Academy is, and also Manuel McAuliffe are they round out the innovation zone. So we have 6 schools in the zone.
Yeah, okay.
And there may be some others here at Central Park that will join at some point.
What, is it open to all of the schools in Central Park?
No, the zone formed initially because of the IB program was a common thread through the 4 initial schools. But then we've expanded we added 2 others, Montclair and actually Willow, because they were seeking more autonomy for the things they want to do. And their programs are not really out of line with the other 4 schools. If we're not intending to grow it anytime soon, but at some point down the road, we likely will.
Okay.
It would have to be from a school would have to initiate that and have to want to have a reason and related to their programs to do that.
Okay.
Hey, if I can just jump in too, Brian, just want to say thank you. Jeff Eder, I'm a board member and also a junior member of the outreach committee, and helping us secure funding for getting Nation Builder going. I think it's going to make a significant difference in our community, and really excited to make sure that that's an investment that's well spent. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and also we were happy to do that. And when Amanda came, we also went to Brookfield Properties and the Central Park Business Association, and are also contributing to that. And then we in 22 we'll fund, I think, your 2nd phase of that, the entire part of that in 22 too. We're really happy. I think the website looks great. Really works well. You navigate it easily. Great content. I think I'm not sure who's responsible, but whoever is doing a really good job.
Let's be sure to acknowledge that. I know Brian Penny's moved a lot of the content over from the old website, and Mark Maringer was sort of in the mechanics. Am I missing anyone who should get more accolades?
Kudos.
No, Mandel's helped also, yeah.
Thank you, Mandel. and absolutely thank you, Brian Weber, for corralling the support for this endeavor.
Sure, happy to do it.
Okay, are there any general questions for Brian Weber about the work of the foundation? Similarly to what I said to Beth Nobles, I circulated the letter and the board will be voting on it in the next hour. You're welcome to stay for that, but you don't have to. But just in terms of like general questions that people might have about the work of the foundation, or general questions for any of the people on the call, we could please, you're welcome to raise your hand or just ask.
Amanda, this is a little off target from the last two discussions we had, but I figured we might lose a few of these people as we go into our second hour. So I wanted to go ahead and bring this up. In fact, my other committee members on the safety committee, Carol and Brad and Gina, haven't even heard this yet, but Dana Hoffman reached out to me just the other day with regard to a request for assistance for identifying a couple of stakeholders. And Carol, you might be interested in this specifically, but the Wicker Park area, that area along Prairie Meadows and 51st that goes on up Central Park Drive there to 53rd, kind of an I-shaped piece in there, is scheduled for repaving later this year. And Dottie is considering some additional safety and bicycle mobility improvements in the area. And so I'm putting out a general request to this broader group at this point in time, and then we'll bring it up with the rest of the committee, safety committee, to talk about a little bit and identify a person or two for her that can serve as a stakeholder at the various different meetings and public hearings and discussions of potential improvements in that area. You know, that's Park Meadows is that area. We have a lot of truck traffic through there. And we've had calls on that several times before, and they may be doing some things that, or looking at doing some things that might address that, as well as bicycling and mobility with regard to pedestrians in that area. So I just want to throw that out there. If anybody wants to get back to, filter that back to me or anybody else on the safety committee, we'd be happy to take that under consideration. So thank you.
Yeah, is there anyone in this meeting who lives in Wicker Park? Okay, I'll reach out to somebody in Wicker Park after this.
So Brian, this is Mark Maringer. I just wanted to add my thanks for your taking the leadership on this. I think it's a great way to honor Landry, and I think it's a very appropriate way. And I assume there's no budget yet for a bust or a statue or something like that for him there, but I was kind of envisioning him like standing there, welcoming students as they came in or something.
Right. Would it just
maybe that can be our long-term goal or something?
Would there be some sort of feature along with the naming, or would it be a plaque, or do you know how it would be implemented?
Brian, you're on mute.
Tim Haven, the lead at LOA, and I are discussing that, exactly what form this will take, which unfortunately requires a lot of input from DPS facilities. Sorry if anybody from facilities is here, but they have their ways of doing things and it can sometimes be a bit bureaucratic. I want to make it noticeable. I don't want it to be obtrusive, but we're going to come up with some appropriate way of. I'd love to have a bust of him smiling, because that's all he ever did. He was the most wonderful, gentle guy to be around, and so there will be something of note. I'm going to make sure of that.
Brian, thank you. Also, I just wanted to chime in and say thanks for leading that effort.
Hey, Jen, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Great to see you.
You too. Thanks, Mark, by the way.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and just plow right into the second part of the meeting, if that's okay. 8 minutes is an awful lot of time to just let go. So let's just let's just keep moving for now. We can maybe stretch in 15 minutes or so. Yeah, Brian, thank you so much for being here tonight, and again for supporting us with the communication piece, but then also giving us this chance to honor Landry. And as far as I know, he was never a member of Sun when it was Sun. Is that right, Brian Penny? You would be the one to know.
He was never. He was an employee of Brookfield when Sun was started. Yeah.
Okay, so he was an employee of Brookfield, and then he was a school board member with DPS. Then he was the executive director of the foundation, amongst a lot of other roles.
As was Mr. Weber. So.
Wait, what?
I think I am a member. I live here. I've been here.
Well, you were also with Forest City when Sun was started, weren't you?
No, I've just worked for the foundation actually since 2000. Oh. There were a lot of overlap.
Oh, that's right. You left the foundation for a while and then came back.
Yeah, I did. I left in 10 and I came back in 17.
All right. Okay. So I will, let's see. Okay. So the first thing we'll touch on community we can just go to the next slide actually. Okay. Oh, I wanted to just note that everyone probably has a lot on their mind. If I had modified this, I would have moved this earlier in the hour, in the 2 hours. But you know, hopefully we're on the precipice of a new era starting soon. But we have open comment after this slide. But I just wanted to give people a space to just take a breath and acknowledge that there might be additional stress that you've been experiencing in the weeks, months, years leading up to today. And having just come out of Martin Luther King weekend, I hope that people had a meaningful time to help build the community. Gina shared with us the work that she was doing this weekend to bring people together. So Mark, you're asking me, why is this called holding space? So I'm just holding a space for people to experience any feelings that they're having about the climate right now. So I just wanted to just take a minute to allow people to breathe and experience that. Okay, we can go on to the next slide, which is open comment. And I asked people if they have questions. So this can be an extension of any questions that you had to ask, or anyone who's here to just make a general open comment. Board members will have time later on to give committee updates and then that sort of thing. So this is really just for the general public who's here. Any questions or comments to share? I'm going to count maybe 10. So there's a long, awkward pause. Okay, we can still perhaps revisit this later on. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat or raise your hand if you have something to say. Okay, so the first item that I wanted a little bit more input on is that we've received several requests, and it might be just because it's a new year, from organizations or Denver departments who are requesting to speak at our meetings. Currently, the triaging process is either I evaluate whether they seem to match demand that I've perceived, and move forward with them in that or not. But I also wanted to be a little bit more proactive about our monthly meetings, and we'll talk about committee work later on. But I just wanted to put it on committee members' radar that if we, I'd like to proactively plan speakers that we have coming, as opposed to, only, filling in invitation or requests that we're receiving, and then not having space left over for programming that we want to initiate. So 4 requests would probably, that would be like 2 months of meetings, which is maybe like half of the upcoming meetings that we're going to be having. And so I've been holding off on responding to those. It's been things like, and I feel like we recently actually heard from the Denver animal shelter. It's like they were just here 2 years ago. I don't know how frequently we would want to have people coming back to talk to the community, that sort of thing. So we don't have to come to a consensus about this tonight, but if there's anyone who wants to help triage requests that we receive for speaking at outreach meetings, please let me know. Or if there is a different way to vet them, like maybe a Google form that we can ask people to complete, so we have like the same amount of information from each one, and then that can be circulated amongst the whole board. So I just wanted to be a little bit more transparent in the approach to this. Does this bring any comments to mind for anyone?
Yeah, Amanda, oh, sorry, who did I step on there?
It was Brad.
Brad, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. I love the idea of maybe getting an intake form, and then maybe it's over just email or something, just voting or using our own Google form to vote. Something where we can all kind of weigh in would be great.
Thanks, Brad.
Amanda, what I was going to say is that a couple of years ago, we were assigning outreach meetings to committees to come up with the agenda. I don't know if you recall doing that, but maybe there's a way to reinstitute a version of that where the committees are responsible for a designated month. That, for example, with sustainability, we tried to pick months that coincided with a big sustainability initiative that we might be working on, something to that effect, to spread this out a little bit, and so that you're not the one that has to take them all in.
Okay, that we were doing that for a while. That's true. I feel like everything's still not quite back as it was before we shifted to the virtual format. It just hasn't doesn't really feel the same. But
Amanda, I'm wondering if, as we get our planning meeting together in February, if we just make that an agenda item.
Okay.
To coordinate that, and I mean, it's not cumbersome. I mean, the emails come in, and it'd be just as easy to put a survey together. The problem is just, these people would like a response, and so we need the board members. If we're going to do this, it can't be like sometimes it's we want to respond back timely to these people.
Yeah, maybe one of the things, if we do a Google form approach, we could ask like what range of dates would be relevant for whatever it is that they want to talk about, or if it's time sensitive, or if whatever they want to say could be condensed into something that could just be circulated as opposed to speaking.
Yeah, we could also put it, we could set up something on the website to, and as we get more sophisticated, people could go out there and we could just send them to the website and have them fill out a form there that would automatically generate a poll to the board members, and they'd have their feedback. So that's a little more sophisticated than Mark and I are right now, but it is something that can be done with Nation Building.
Okay. All right. So we will revisit this in the context of our strategic planning meeting, which is happening at the end of February. Okay. Next slide, please, Brian. Okay, and so this is a flipped order from how we talked about things during the outreach meeting, but here we have you can't see my cursor. So on the left side of the screen are the buildings surrounding the quad, and Brian Weber, are you still available? That's okay. Okay, so there are the buildings around the quad, which I think is kind of like it'll be almost like a figure 8 in the middle, which is the Landry Taylor area. So we heard directly from Brian Weber about this in the first part of the meeting. I circulated a letter. Are there any further questions before we vote on whether or not to support the letter of support for the renaming of the quad? And I don't think that we did mention the second bullet point here during the first hour, which is that this is supported by the school board member, Jennifer Bacon, the leadership of the Northeast Innovation Zone that Brian Weber was talking about, both of the principals on the campus, as well as Landry's wife, and then the foundation. So are there further questions about this letter or the initiative? Okay, and then for voting process, can someone just, do we
I motion to approve.
Thank you. I support.
Amanda just asked if any board members have objections. That's the easiest.
Thank you. Do any board members have objections? Okay. All right. So I can, and then, I wanted to, Jay mentioned that we should just sign as a board and not as individual people. I'm happy to just have the letter signed from me on behalf of the board. And I can do that and send it over tonight.
That's most efficient. I think that makes sense.
Okay. All right. I will take care of that. And I'll use the letter that I circulated late last evening. And so that everyone has a copy of it. And okay, great.
Thank you for taking the lead on that, Amanda.
Oh, sure. You're welcome. Yeah, Brian made it easy. Okay, and so the letter of support for the Sand Creek Greenway in here. Let's see, I was just trying to show that the Sand Creek Greenway starts from the intersection there at I-70 and goes down, passes by Bluff Lake, and then ends at, it does not end, it keeps going, but its portion in this community ends at the community border. So are there any questions on the letter that was circulated, edited and circulated by Jack on this support for the joint grant application by Sand Creek Greenway and Bluff Lake Nature Center?
And I might add, Amanda, I sent a follow-up email there with the revised letter minus some typos. Thank you, Carol, for letting me know about those. I was writing quickly this morning, so I made a couple errors. So a typo-free version was circulated around 11:30 this morning that is error-free.
We'll be sure to work with that error, the typo-free version. Okay. Are there, so
I'll make the motion, Amanda.
Thank you. Are there any objections? Okay, we will support the letter of support to Sand Creek Greenway. Okay, and the next slide, please. Okay, and so I alluded to this when we were talking to the police at the beginning of the call. I was contacted by a former it's accurate to say a former Sun Board member, and this person has a background in law and is planning to approach businesses that they have deemed to be non-receptive to efforts to stop street racing on their property. And then this is the Denver Municipal Code that they cited in suggesting that there should be more responsibility on the business owners who have not stopped this from happening. And so he reached out to Councilman Herndon. Oh, and Amanda Schultz is still here. And he reached out to me. And so I guess, Amanda, is there anything that is happening coming out of Councilman Herndon's office regarding working more closely with businesses who have some room to help with further abatement of street racing?
So the latest I have seen was a conversation that Councilman Herndon had with our city attorney about it. I haven't heard specifically about the businesses, but I can absolutely check in on that particular portion. And of course, we're always happy to help facilitate anything that the city can do to support businesses in general. So if there's anybody who you think we should be reaching out to, happy to do that. And okay. I know he's been in fairly constant communication with Commander, the commander out of District 5 as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think, so does anyone have any comments about this? I do not have a letter drafted.
Amanda,
yeah.
Amanda, are you saying we'd send this just to the city and then assume that they distribute, through Councilman Herndon to then include DPD and others, or have we gotten that far?
No, we're not that far, and that's I also want to be careful because this feels like it could be challenging for businesses who are having a challenging time, and I want to be sensitive to that. So I we were asked to support. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I think that it's pretty clear that residents have the option of doing three things when encountering street racing: to report it on the website, to call 911, and then to call the non-emergency line to report it as a nuisance. But I think that going beyond that, I mean,
So do we know, Amanda, how pervasive this is? Is this one or two businesses in our region that are kind of a problem, or do we have 35 of these businesses, or do we know?
It's the warehouses that are along Central Park Boulevard on the north side of I-70. And so the neighbors in Central Park North can hear it and smell it when it's behind the Starbucks in those warehouses, and the neighbors in the North End area can hear it and smell it. And when I say smell it, it's because they're just like burning rubber and tires, and it's just like white clouds coming up from it. So I'm aware of the two sections on the north and south ends of the warehouse areas, but there might be more. And then I think
Hines is still on the call. Perhaps he can weigh in with better specifics there. Lieutenant, are you still with us? Oh, it says he's here. Maybe he stepped away.
He's coming back.
You're muted still.
I don't see him on the participant list.
I see him. He's waving, but he's not. It says he's muted. Oh, did he get muted by us? No.
No.
Yeah, there you go. We're good.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Apparently, I ended up muted after a while here for some reason. Okay, sorry. What was the question?
Oh, I was approached by a resident who wanted to know what CPUN could do in an effort to approach businesses directly with a nuisance charge when street racing is going on their property.
And the question as to how pervasive it is. We understand, Amanda just said, it's Northfield and east of Central Park Boulevard there, north of I-70 is a predominant area. But how big of an issue it is? Is it one or two properties? Is it 20 properties? That kind of thing.
It's a big issue. It's a weekly issue, and it's an issue across the entire region. So it's not just one we're dealing with. It's one that the entire region's dealing with, which is part of the reason we have the street racing task force. Unfortunately, that area that we were just talking about has become a popular place for them, which is why we have a lot of our enforcement efforts going on in that area at the moment. One of the things I would say, though, regarding the businesses, as Kiara was talking about earlier, they've all been very receptive to working with the Denver Police Department to stop that stuff. They don't want that on their lots. We've yet to find a business that's like, oh, we're okay with that on our lot. When we have seen that in other areas of the city in the past or other areas of the district, we've explained to them that they could be in violation of public nuisance statutes, and that usually gets them on board. But everything we've seen in the Central Park neighborhood, and again, most of it's in the warehouses, I guess you'd say east of Central Park, north of I-70, west of Peoria Street, where they're gathering. All of those businesses have generally been very receptive to having us trespass anybody that we find on their properties after hours. Again, we've run into the issue, though, where some of these businesses are not able to secure their lots because of the nature of their operations, with trucks sometimes being delivered at night and things of that nature. So we've had some businesses that have been good about securing their lots. Other ones haven't been able to do that, but they have worked with us to pursue criminal charges against people that are found there. Obviously, though, when we come in, even with 10 or 12 cops, and there's 500 people that have amassed from a social media post that said, hey, the next stop is, this warehouse by 47th and Peoria, it can be hard for us to take care of all of them. As I spoke about at the beginning of the meeting, that's where we kind of pursue it from a standpoint of getting who we can and seeing if we can build a case against the people who are promoting that activity at the location.
Okay.
Amanda, that sort of begs a question. The person that you spoke with said that they, at least in their opinion, these businesses were unresponsive. So what is their definition of responsive?
I think it was just the that second paragraph there, the language about public nuisance on property where they hold any legal or equitable interest or right of possession. So because it's happening on their property, they just holding them accountable. But it sounds like all
yeah,
efforts
Amanda,
by
I'm just wondering if we go back and, you know, versus us sending a letter. I mean, obviously the city is supportive, so sending a letter, they're doing at least, maybe we post something on the website and, you know, via social media that instructs residents of kind of this update from Lieutenant Hines and shares the information versus sending a letter.
Okay, I think that that's fair.
That'd be most proactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I in this particular instance, if we were to send a letter, I wouldn't do anything more than support what's in the legal code. Say we as residents support what's in the legal code and processes there, and here's ways that we as homeowners can pursue things or something like that. But yeah, if we can do that without actually sending a letter, I think that's great. So
I would actually be cautious to even send a letter. I mean, if a business or rather a property owner were to be charged with a public nuisance, that's essentially the city moving in to, in essence, seize the property from the owner. And I think, I don't know if we want to be in the business of going around getting people's property seized. And I would worry what that would do to some of these business owners that we are trying to engage with, when all of a sudden we're the group going around trying to have property seized. I would be cautious against, you know, any statement we make regarding that code there.
And that is actually what happens if someone is convicted of, oh, Councilman Herndon, Amanda Schultz, please go ahead.
Hi. So I've been with the district data office for almost 8 years now. And during that time, I have seen exactly 2 public nuisance cases come against businesses in the district, both of which were in, well, they were both on East Colfax, one of which was the Old Hangar Bar. The threshold for actually bringing that is significant. You really, it's going to be a challenge if you're dealing with business owners who, by all accounts from DPD, have been cooperative and supportive of efforts to end this behavior. So I would just say at this point, if you have businesses that are willing to be cooperative, my experience tells me that I would work to support them in their efforts, as opposed to trying to pursue a public nuisance case. We didn't necessarily seize the property in either of those cases. For what it's worth, the city didn't just take it. However, they did mandate that the business shut down for a period of time. That's what happened at one of the old markets on East Colfax. So they actually were not able to operate for a significant period of time. But like I said, if you have businesses that are willing to be cooperative but struggling with challenges, my recommendation based on experience would be to throw your effort behind supporting them however possible, as opposed to going after them.
And if I could add one more thing on here, guys, regarding the kind of what Amanda was just saying about the threshold on these nuisance cases. We've even had some trouble getting nuisance cases against the actual person doing burnouts in the parking lot because of the fact that they were on private property. Now, the trespass agreements we have give us some teeth to pursue them for trespassing charges when they've been on these properties that are working with us to keep them off of there. But I just dealt with that with the city attorney's office on a case last week where they said, well, we can't do the public nuisance because they were doing this street racing related activity on private property, and the nuisance statute won't cover us for that. So again, the nuisance threshold is kind of hard to use on this in this kind of case. Usually when we go after the nuisance cases for these street racers, it's once we catch them out on the public streets doing stuff. And, you know, as we've seen with them blocking I-70 or Central Park Boulevard or any other places are doing that. that's where we have the most success doing a nuisance case to seize the vehicles and things like that are involved. Our best avenue with the private property has been to get cooperation from the business owner and trespass anybody that's found there that's involved in it that we can catch.
So just to clarify, so the issue with law enforcement is that it is private property. So when you're talking about exhibition of speed or any of those ticketed offenses, you can't do that because it's private property?
Well, there's only a few things we're allowed to cite on private property. We can cite reckless driving, and we do cite for that. But in terms of going after them for public nuisance, they're not taking public nuisance cases specifically for that. And the public nuisance is what gives us a teeth to, in some cases, shut down businesses, seize vehicles and property and things of that nature. So we are running into a hard spot with the public nuisance on private property, but we are still able to charge some charges against the people involved in the street racing, either for trespassing as somebody who's just kind of there observing, and or reckless driving. And we've certainly impounded vehicles and stuff for reckless driving, but on private property that typically won't hold for a permanent seizure of the property.
I don't even think the public.
Oh wait, Jack, Mark's had his hand up for a while. Let's hear what he had to say.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. My hand kind of blends in with my background, and I didn't even realize we had hands until today. So based on what I'm hearing, I think we probably have a consensus that we don't want to write a letter admonishing any businesses because it sounds like they're actually cooperating. If anything, I would suggest that the police can send the thanks from the neighborhood so that they know that residents are paying attention to this and do want this resolved and taken care of. And yeah, I definitely strongly support, let's put out some information throughout the community about, what to do if they're getting street racing by them. And Lieutenant Hines, if there's anything else we can do as a community, we'll do it. So just let us know. If you want to try to set up a sting or something or get all the departments ready one night, and as soon as we call you up, they come swarming in and shut down all of 40th Avenue and trap everybody in there and get everyone ticketed or something, we can help with that if you want. It doesn't sound like to me though that there's any reason that we're gonna write any kind of angry letters to businesses, because it sounds like the businesses in our area are cooperating, and that's exactly what we want.
Right, that's what I'm hearing as well. Thank you, Mark, for that synthesis. Jack, did you have anything to add?
No, Mark said what I was going to say, except he said it a lot nicer than I was going to say it. So
all right,
that's all.
We'll accept that. Okay. Okay, so I just want to thank everyone for talking through this. I feel like it was a really sticky issue, but it was easier to talk through than to email about. So thanks for that dialogue. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so we've talked about that we have the new website. We're taking feedback on it. We have a Google Doc that everyone on the board should have access to. Is that right, Mark? Everyone has access to it?
Yeah, sorry, I had to find my unmute button. I believe everyone has access to it. If not, they can let me know. Now, this is a public meeting, so if anybody in the public wants to contact us, at the very least, you can send an email to centralparkunitedneighbors@gmail.com. So if you're watching this later, thank you for watching, and please send us an email, and we'll make sure to get the video recordings of this posted as quickly as possible.
Great, thanks. So right, just kind of reminding ourselves. Oh.
And please try to do so tonight, because tomorrow morning during the inauguration, we're actually going to have a outreach communications committee meeting to discuss, and some of the things we'll have to go over are, the whether or not we want to, what the various comments that people have, to see if we need to have any discussion of those. So if people can take a look at it tonight, that'd be ideal.
Hey, Amanda,
let's not do live comments on the meeting.
Amanda, I took the liberty to switch over to the website so we could, point out a few things. So for those committees that have been asked, if you watch under the about, there's CPUN committees, and we have pages for each of the committees to be able to put content out there. And so committee chairs, it's your responsibility to put the content out there, and it's your responsibility to reach out to Mark or I, and we can give you access, which you all have, and show you how to do it. It's very easy. It's just like Word document almost. So that's one of them. The other thing is, and I think, you know, we've replicated the board page. So if you ever need links to the recording, we've got the board pages. The thing that's nice is that, you know, in the past, we have always put information on the main page about our meetings. So you see that there, but we also have a calendar, and you'll see the same information. So you can get the Zoom meeting information here, and we'll try to keep a couple of meetings ahead for people. And committees can also put and post events. So if you're going to have a committee meeting, you can put the meeting information out there so it's available for the public. The other thing that we've got is we put Central Park, we put the resources for the neighborhood out there. And Mark and I are still trying to figure out exactly how it works. But there is a way that we will try to keep this community updates page. And then you'll be able to put an update here, and then we'll be able to post directly to Facebook that says, hey, check the community updates about this, and there'll be a link that'll bring them back to the webpage versus having to type it in 2 different places. So Amanda will have to train you on how to do that, so you don't just automatically go post to Facebook, but you can post it here and then link it to Facebook. The other thing is that once you're signed in, you'll see here at the bottom, I'm signed in. You can also sign in with Facebook or Twitter. You can create reactions. You can also set up an account, and people can set up an account through joining. So when you join here, this automatically gets you on our email distribution. And so that's just the website. That isn't the communications content, the ability to tweet and all of that stuff that we are still working on. So if you have content, you know, the issue is we need to train you how to put your own content out there. Because if we don't have multiple people putting content out there, the website's going to get stale.
One addition though, Carol, I did get your email about the Safe Streets Committee, and I can get that content loaded up there. You did it in a nice format that'll make it very easy. So if somebody doesn't feel like they can put their own page together, you're welcome to email me with whatever content you want up there, and I can throw it up there. The other addition I'd say is it helps to have pictures on websites because people get tired of just looking at text. So if anybody has pictures from the community or neighborhood or whatever that they want to throw up there, let me know. Mandel, was that your picture of the 3D, or I mean, sorry, 360-degree footage?
Yeah, so that's one of the images that I captured with my drone there. So that's something that I've been kind of looking at on the website and trying to see if we could make it as visually appealing as possible. So I've been looking at, you know, some of the imaging and seeing what we can do there.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you,
Is
Mark.
there a folder where people can drop photos, like in the box drive, where that
you want another shared drive? I can put together another shared drive.
I'm going to try to stop emailing attachments repeatedly and start using a shared drive.
Okay. I will create another Google shared drive and share it with everybody on the board. So if you
Or
have
not
photos,
another drive, but can't we just use the same drive and have it be a folder in it? Right? Like
Yeah, it just means I need to rename one of them so that it makes sense.
Yeah, like if we can do the monthly meeting, just rename it just like CPUN
website.
Yeah, or just CPUN, and then like
CPUN.
monthly meetings can be there, and then website content can be another folder, and so it can just all be in one place.
That's fine.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, what, let's see, it's 8 o'clock. How are we doing with what else we have to cover?
Sorry, Amanda, I just needed to change tabs.
Oh, sure.
That.
Oh, I guess you did. Okay.
Real quick, I just want to thank Brian, who, in addition to his work on the website, has done so much to make Sun CPUN. Not glamorous stuff like changing IRS filings and bank accounts and a million other little things like that that take a lot of time. And Brian, it's much appreciated.
Yeah, I saw several notifications today that you are updating the backside of the Facebook page to point to the new website, and just, you know, these things. The transition takes time, and you've really been spearheading it. Thank you.
Yeah, hopefully you eventually got to eat your lunch.
I did. Sorry, I'm having trouble with multiple veins.
I should have kept a tab of what we had covered so far, so I could just seamlessly dive back into that. I'm sorry.
Here we are, Amanda.
Here we are.
I will.
We're gonna toss it to Carol. Okay. Let me see if I have everything written down, so we don't have to keep going back to this because it's just a couple of bullets on each slide. Can you just go back up to the agenda slide, and I'll take a screenshot, and then we can just close the slides. That's it. Thank you. And I will grab it. And okay, so Carol, please walk us through what you have encountered recently with intra and inter-community communication.
Neighborhood cooperation. The INC, which is an organization that is citywide, and it's about all the rhinos. I had no idea there were so many neighborhood organizations in the city, but there are many, many, many. So I'm now the delegate for CPUN for INC, and they have monthly meetings, and I attended one on the 9th, and then I attended the Transportation Committee meeting on, let's see, it was on the 14th. The meeting on the 9th, I'm not going to go into great detail, and I can also probably use the website. I'll check with you, Brian and Mark, about that in terms of dropping in information after I attend a meeting, just with some bullet points. But they had Tim Sandoz, who's from DOTI, the Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, speaking about projects that are coming up in the city. I don't know if you all have noticed over on Northfield Boulevard, the new crosswalk that has flashing lights and the whole thing. I don't know how that got done, and I want to find out about that, but all of a sudden it appeared and was completed in a really timely fashion. But he was reporting on things like that. He was very thorough. There's going to be, let's see, an advisory board for DOTI, which I can get details about. The city has a $250 million loss due to COVID. And so obviously that's going to affect a lot of projects with DOTI. But what I noticed, they had something like 70 people in this Zoom meeting. And it became apparent pretty early in the meeting that many of the people who were attending that meeting were extremely concerned about the unhoused. And there were many, many comments. So he did his presentation, but then really had to address a number of these things. And it was clear that they didn't expect that. So there were a lot of questions about that, a lot of questions that were unanswered about that, but it's on a lot of people's minds, and about the sweeps, and a lot of anger out there about what's happening to folks who are unhoused. So that became, I think, an unexpected item on that agenda. The meeting that I went to for the Transportation Committee, the person who is, and I want to get her title correct, the new CEO General Manager for RTD, was the guest, and she spoke. She came on board, I think, in August of last year. She came from Long Beach and has an extensive resume in this area. And so she just came on just to introduce herself and speak a little bit. And then there was some discussion about how do we standardize communication protocol between RNOs and the city around various projects. So that was something that was ongoing, and I can keep, and it's something that I'm interested too, so I can keep track of that. My question, I had a conversation with Shalise Hundley. I don't know if she's still in the meeting right now, but she was earlier, who is a new MCA delegate. And she's also interested in transportation issues. And I don't know whether you all know this or not, but we changed the name from Transportation Committee Safe Streets. Thank you, Brad, for initiating that. And so that's what we're going with. We're the Central Park Safe Streets Committee. And she has a keen interest. I had a conversation with her a few days ago. And I'm really pleased. I've also been talking to John Holt, who's an MCA delegate, new delegate. And we're talking about how we can collaborate with one another and be clear about our roles. And so we're not wasting time with certain things. So I'm looking forward to continuing conversations with those folks. So I think that's it. I just wanted you to be aware that I'm the INC delegate, and I can figure out a good, efficient way to let everybody know, not just whoever dials in these Zoom meetings, but just the community in general.
That's great. Thank you for representing us there. It's been a long time since we've had any representation at INC meetings. And we touched last month on the importance of better communication with the MCA. So thank you for following up on that and reporting back. Thank you.
I don't know, are you going to go into what committees are doing at all, like the high points of what committees are doing, or do you want to wait until February when we meet and plan, or how do you want
to? I have a big question about committees, just like when meetings are happening, because I think that it would be important to have, because I suppose you're allowed to have private meetings as you need to, but in general, if we post the time, and I guess at this point it's a Zoom link for accessing the community meetings, the committee meetings, it would give people a chance to join into those. And I do not currently know when these meetings are taking place. And so just in terms of the next topic being committee meetings on the agenda, that's a big question that I have, is just what's going on, and how can we make it so that these meetings are open for public participation. You
want to speak to that?
We talked about that in the Safe Streets Committee a little bit, and we, for our content, I don't think it's up on the website quite yet, but we wanted to post the meeting times and also a contact things. If you want to be, included or invited to these meetings, we'll make sure you get added to the calendar invite. So I think that's our process so far. But I think we're planning a meeting. It's the first Tuesday of every month at 3 p.m. I think is what we decided on. Is that right? Okay.
And I'll reiterate, as people volunteer for the committees, that's the next phase. Like, committee chairs need to get their content. Then Mark and I can show you how you can use Nation Builder to communicate to your committee and announce your times. And when you have things like this and you get an email from me that says we're going to send the community email out, that's when you're supposed to respond and say we're going to meet on the first Tuesday of the month so that we can do those things. So, that's, Mark and I are happy to help you guys, but I will say it until I'm, not here anymore. This website has to be the board's. It can't be Mark and Brian's website. It won't be effective if you don't learn how to use it and learn how to utilize it.
Does it make sense to use either a board meeting or schedule a separate time for us just to get trained on how to use it? Maybe more efficient than training each of us individually?
Ed and Mandel both nodded yes, so apparently.
Yeah.
I know I'm putting this on you and Mark, Brian, but I'm just wondering whether, you know,
No,
I'd like to be able to do these things too, you know.
I was assuming
like,
at some point we would do it. I just wasn't sure if we were going to do it as a board meeting or not. And I was actually going to say one of the things we should also discuss at some point is some of our strategies for how to utilize all these tools. So for example, if we want people to sign up for our committee email lists, one of the things we should do is probably get started on a survey for this year where we ask people, with one of the sets of questions would be, you know, here's this committee, would you be interested in signing up for their email list? Because one of the great things about this tool is because everything's integrated, if somebody answers yes to that question, they automatically get added to that, you know, sort of filtered group, which makes it really easy to send out an email to just the people who have said they want to be getting your Safe Streets info, for example. So maybe we can make that a primary agenda item either for next month or for a separate meeting of some sort. I don't know, Amanda, I'll leave that up to you, if you want to do this as part of our regularly scheduled board meetings or something else.
I think, do you think we could make sufficient progress during the hour of a board meeting if we do it next month? Brian?
Yeah, I don't think it requires a particularly long period of time. We just should warn everyone in advance that they don't need to hang on for our board meeting if we're going to be doing something boring, like here's how to put stuff on our website. So.
Okay.
Yeah, and Amanda, I'm sorry, Mark and I probably need to sit down and put together, because the other thing is that Nation Builder has resources, and so we can go out and people can ask questions to Nation Builder directly too, if Mark and I don't know how to do it. But I mean, Mark and I spent an hour on the phone with Nation Builder, and literally the only other thing we've done is just played with it. So you can't, I mean, even Mandel changed the theme of the website, and we didn't kill him. So it's all good. Everybody, we just have to be cognizant that the changes that you make are real time and people can see it. And there's and also, by being an admin, you have access to all this data. We now know every time someone comments on our CPUN Facebook page, and Nation Builder tracks that for us. So that's some of the cool stuff that we are just figuring out.
Yeah, we'll be able to target emails to our Facebook commentators who are most commonly, active, stuff like that. So, not to get creepy with our data, but we can do a lot of cool stuff.
All right. So we'll tentatively, maybe if people could plan to do one of like how are they, like 15 minutes or 30 minutes? I'm sorry, I haven't done it yet.
I would say 30 minutes is probably a low amount of time to go through everything we want to be able to do.
And wait, would you recommend that people do one through the website through Nation Builder first? No. Okay. Oh, so like just with you guys exclusively is sufficient.
Because there's only like, maybe 3 or 4 things that we want to be able to show everybody how to do. Like we want to be able to show everyone how to send out an email to their list if their committee has a list. We want to be able to show people how to make edits to their website. And then we want to be able to show people how to post potentially to social media through the system about updates they just made. And then the 4th one would probably be like how to put your stuff on the neighborhood calendar and put in community news. So it's like 5 things. Each one might take a few minutes with questions, but adding up with the conversation and stuff, I'd say it's going to be half hour to 45 minutes.
Okay.
If we get really chatty, it might be an hour, but hopefully we won't.
Okay. All right. So we'll plan on that for February. And that'll be timed well with the strategic planning, so the last 2 things on the agenda are still like walking through the committees and just ensuring that we all know when they're meeting and anything else that needs to be announced today. And then the last thing is the strategic planning for the board. But before putting that out in an email, I just wanted to report, I met with Steve Charbonneau, who's the facilitator that we've worked with before. We talked about what we would need to do to work with him for a strategic planning session. He recommended we started by talking about like a 4-hour session at one time, and he was like, nobody will want to do that. And so he recommended like 2 different evenings of like 2 hours, but no more than a week apart. And so I will be looking for your availability for late February. So like some sort of like moving 2 days, whether it's like back to back or a week apart or something in between, but probably weeknights. But are there, I can send out a when to meet poll for that in the coming days. But if there were just any general guidelines, this is the last agenda topic for tonight, and then we'll go back to the committee meetings. Are there any general guidelines you'd want me to keep in mind for that scheduling for late February?
Are we thinking weekend or weekdays or?
He thought that weeknights might be easier than weekend nights.
Okay.
And I guess that's up to you guys. I can include all of them, and then we can just go from there. All right, I'll send around the when to meet, but just know that we'll be looking for 2 nights or 2 sessions of 2 hours on 2 different days, and like no more than a week apart.
Just to be clear, this next to last Tuesday of February is our regularly scheduled meetings. You're talking about 2 additional meetings in addition to that one.
I know, which is not ideal.
Just want to make sure we're clear about that. So.
I know, but then in terms of timing it with the with that meeting, do you think that, I guess and I also thought about perhaps we could just use that entire meeting for one of the 2 sessions, but now we're talking about using it for getting to know the website. So that was one other question that I wanted to pose. Like, should we just give up our monthly meeting and have it be one of the 2 strategic planning sessions?
I would.
But then we can't do the training, I guess, is the only thing. Does it have to be 4 hours? I mean, I'm just curious why we're thinking 4 hours of strategic planning. Do we actually have an agenda already? Or are we just thinking we're going to come up with one that's going to take sort of an hour for 4 different pieces? Or, I mean, I'm just wondering if it's possible to do it in 3 or 2 even. Or
he thought that 2 sessions, with the first being 2 hours, that might run a little bit long, and the second one wrapping up within 2 hours was sufficient. I'm going back to my notes. Okay. We have like a 4-pronged agenda so far, but there will be homework in advance and to make the most of the time that we have together. I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's things like ensuring that our purpose and mission are kind of like aligning with the work that we are currently doing, to ensure that the alignment between the work of the committees is, I mean, that's kind of saying the same thing again, that our committee's work reflects what the organization's work is in name. Like,
and Amanda, I think, so Jeff, last month at the board meeting, we talked about, we, as a committee, we've spent the last year or 18 months trying to change the name. The name's changed, and now we really need to think about what activities are we going to have? What are the roles of each of the committees? How are we going to coordinate that? How are we going to communicate it? How are we going to do all that? And we can't do that in 1-hour meetings once a month. We really need to get together, put a plan, and typically what when you joined the board, we would get together on a 2-hour block of time, and this is the kind of just removing the agenda for the organization. And so it's a commitment that when Mark, Jeff, and Amanda and I sat down and talked, the list just kept growing and growing as we put it together. So that's why we need Steve to facilitate it, but we do have a very long agenda for that time.
And I'm all for a strategic planning meeting. I think it's a great idea. I guess what I'm saying is I'm trying to figure out, like, are we going to come out of this with like a mission statement, a structure in terms of the organization of how we're going to organize ourselves? I'm just trying to understand kind of what our goal is, other than, just trying to figure out who we are or what our goals are for the next year.
I think it's more specifically, how do we work as an organization, and what are the things that we want to drive for the next year, and then start planning those.
Okay, and can I share my screen Yeah, it looks like I can. So here, so these are like the 4 big areas. So just taking what we have in our bylaws and am I sharing a screen?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then reframing that just in language that perhaps people might be expecting, emphasizing our operating principles and all of that, achieving, just ensuring that we are on the same page in terms of our operating procedures for board meetings and for board members, and then procedures for committees in terms of communication, like giving people what they need to draft committee charters, and then all of that together kind of pushing us in the direction of having a strategic direction for the next couple of years.
Yeah, Jeff, I think you've heard it already here. The added responsibility that each board member is going to have with respect to communicating with the community, and tactically some of those communication best practices, expectations, coordination amongst committees is an example of a very concrete deliverable that I hope that we get out of this session, because we're going to be more flat in terms of how we execute communications as a result of Nation Builder than we have been historically.
Yeah, I would also just add quickly that, you know, Jeff and Mark and I have been talking about fundraising, and it's very early stages for us, but this type of a meeting is very important, I think, for us to be able to understand kind of who we are and what we are, so as we decide not only what we want to fundraise for, but how we want to fundraise. I think we have to have that message clear to us so we can then, you know, communicate it to people who might be interested in supporting us and what we're doing. So I'd say that's an important outcome. I'm hoping that comes out of this as well.
Great. I think that will. All right. So just to, so that will be next month, and so we'll plan to use one of the days as the as our monthly meeting, and then we'll push the website training off one more month. But that's okay. It's just a couple of weeks. February is a short month anyway.
Well, Amanda, I would also like to say that, you know, I still am offering that, especially somebody like you, or if somebody is just jonesing to get to the website, you know, we'll make time, and we can do it one-off if we need to, because, you know, the longer we wait, the longer Mark and I continue to do the updates. And I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying that we need to get everybody up and running, because the slower that we do that, the slower that the community responds.
Okay, fair enough. All right, and so then just to circle back to committees and meetings that are happening, are there any just general announcements coming from committees that we should all be aware of at this point? And also, please let me know when your committee meetings are happening. Mark.
Sustainability is going to be meeting on, damn it, I just had it in front of me. Where were we?
The second Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you. There we go. Second Tuesday, so February 9th at 6:30, for now online, eventually, hopefully at Lasandia.
And I would encourage
for Taco Tuesday. Don't forget, Taco Tuesday will come back.
I encourage everybody to do hold those meetings publicly, not just for transparency's sake, but for community participation. Sustainability did that for first couple of years that Mark and I were working on that together, and we always had the odd resident or two show up for tacos, and good events came out of it.
Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up question from the Safe Streets folks?
Of course.
Well, I wanted to make sure I wasn't too off topic for Amanda, since it's 8:22, but since you're the Safe Streets Committee, what does that mean for our train that runs through, or trains that run through our neighborhood or near our neighborhood? Are you going to be involved in transportation issues that relate to those, or should sustainability plan on keeping that under our, or having that under our purview?
I can see Brad mulling this over, and he's unmuted, so he's going to speak to it.
I hate to kill your name, but I just figured, you know, it's a good name.
Safe streets and trains. I think we could make an addendum, but you know, we haven't really talked much about it because I think we've been so focused on, you know, moving away from transportation, kind of evoking something just about kind of cars and moving cars through the community, to something more around walking, biking, or rolling through the neighborhood. I would say rolling is inclusive of trains, but I would say we haven't done much with public transit so far. So I think it might be a jump ball for who has domain.
Yeah, I when we talked about safe streets, one of the things we talked about was total inclusion, just like Brad said, of things that walk and cycle and roll and various different things. So I think trains and that aspect, granted, we don't want to be just 100%. When we wanted to get away from transportation, we wanted to get away from the idea that everything was car-centric, because so much of what we were doing was car-centric. But I think trains could pretty easily fall under there because of the mass transit and pedestrian aspects that might follow under that. So
I also have some personal interest on electrification of our transportation system. So if there's a particular person who would be our conduit for that kind of discussions, because I'm starting to think of a potential event for September. So if there's somebody I should coordinate with, that'd be great, because I don't have time for another meeting, unfortunately, but I would be happy to coordinate with somebody, and you can tell me who it is, and then we can move on to the rest of the agenda.
My name is Ignacio Correa Ortiz. I live on the second filing number 2.
Mm-hmm.
I am an architect for RTD for now. Who knows what's going to happen later, but so remember, we have bus route 105, which is one of the business routes, and then we have 38 and some other bus routes, all that come to the Central Park Station. I'll be happy to chime in. I'm just listening as a good neighbor. Sorry I came in so late, but keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, shoot me the dates you were thinking about for your electrification meeting. We can
there is a particular week in September that is National Drive Electric Week.
Okay.
So I don't know exactly what those dates are right now, but we can discuss it at a later time. But it's like mid-September or something like that, mid to late September.
By the way, RTD has 2 electric vehicle supply stations right here at Central Park. And since COVID, they have been, the usage just dropped dramatically. I am in charge of growing the electric vehicle service for the public at RTD. So
wonderful.
Most people are charging at home. That's the good news.
Well, I've been using it, just so that you know.
I used it a couple times too, so thank you for having it.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody done?
Great. Yeah, thanks.
You know, I thought I was unmuted earlier, but I was shaking my head in agreement with Jeff that I thought it would be more advantageous for us to have a group meeting about the website development piece. But I just wanted to give you an update from the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. We have been meeting. We've got 7 members. There was a young lady named Dion Williams that we were initially interviewing for the Sun Board, and she was living in Aurora, so she was still in Central Park, but that disqualified for the board, the actual board. But she's agreed to co-chair the Diversity and Inclusion Committee with me. We've met like 3 different times, and really what we're trying to do is just establish a good foundation, and we don't have anything in terms of a schedule that we're going to rotate. Basically what we've been doing is checking in with people to see when they could meet so that we could establish some things. One of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is polling the community. And so we plan on using the new website interface to do so, to get some information before we just go out there and try and, create events and things that we think we might want to do versus what these polls determine. So that's one thing. I wanted to ask about the Zoom accounts, because I've been using my business account, because if you go over like 45 minutes or whatever, Zoom will cut you off. So do we have that available to use for the committees, or how are we supposed to do that?
Well, we also talked about transitioning to the city's Zoom meetings. And I know that we've already scheduled our February meeting, but that would be, I think there's Amanda Schultz sent me a link that we should be using, and then we can cancel our Zoom account, which I just can't bring myself to do, but we should do. But they'll just schedule a meeting for you, and you send them what your Zoom login is, and then that makes you the administrator of the meeting.
Okay, so if you could like put that somewhere for us to have access to, that'd be great. Okay. I think that's the last thing. So we really wanted to kind of do the same thing that we were talking about with the group as a whole. We want to define our mission and make sure that we're going in that direction. So what I can do, I will say the next meeting is on the 27th, which is next Wednesday. And what we're going to do is just kind of continue to go over what we talked about. And then we've got a Google Drive account to where we're kind of compiling some information and some of the questions that'll be on the questionnaire. So that's what we're working on.
Great. And what time on the 27th?
So that's going to be at 6:30.
Okay, and
so I think really what we want to do before we open it up is just get our stuff together and make sure that we have an agenda and what we want to focus on before, because we had to kind of regroup and figure out where we were. So rather than just open it up and try and figure things out with everybody, in the public making comment about it, we wanted to focus on what we wanted to do as a committee.
Okay, but so that one shouldn't be posted as public.
What's that?
That we shouldn't post that one as public.
I don't think it's a good idea right now to do that until we kind of got some things ironed out. Okay, fair enough.
Thank you, Mandel. Does anyone else have anything?
I was going to touch briefly on the work that the safety committee has been doing. We met last week. We will meet the Wednesday prior to board meetings at 5 o'clock. That time can change if more people would like to join. Jeff, Gina, and Sandra and I were able to partake in that meeting. We talked initially, we spent the first part of the meeting talking with Beth Nobles from Sand Creek regarding that grant application. And then we were able to transition to speaking about some of the work that the committee wants to be involved in, which revolves around kind of 4 objectives we set for ourselves. And I'll share that final document out with everyone that we created from the meeting. And we do want to take the lead on responding to the growing unhoused population here in the neighborhood, but we want to be very intentional about the way we do that. And when we say we want to be intentional, it's more of a connection to services is the approach we want to take. Being very mindful that, these are people that are struggling on hard times, and we see our role as being able to bring the service providers to them and connect them with what they need to be successful. Gina has some great contacts at the Coalition for the Homeless and the Denver Rescue Mission that we are hoping to leverage. And again, the objective is not about, there's something wrong here that we need to solve. It's more about, there are resources. We want to make sure that they're being deployed to the places where they can do the most good. And we definitely, want to talk about street racing and crime and all those other things as well. But, when we thought about, what is a safe community, it's more than a community without crime. It's a community that is, a great place to live, work, and play. And so we want to make sure that we're providing the community with the resources that are needed to make that successful. So we welcome anybody interested in joining with us. Again, Wednesday before our board meetings, 5:30. We'll work the time out based on what works for everyone.
Thank you. And I'm not to speak on behalf of communication and outreach, but obviously there's been a lot of work there with getting the website transitioned. And then I think that you told me that Sandra is no longer on the committee. And so it's anyway, and you guys have been meeting regularly. I'll let you talk.
We have all three Jeffs, I believe, because fundraising is a subcommittee of it. But one of the J Jeffs may not show up to the communications and outreach one because he came to the fundraising one. But we've got all three Jeffs, me, Brian, and Mandel. I wasn't sure, did you want to be on communication and outreach too or not?
Yes, yeah, so I'll be attending tomorrow's meeting as well.
So yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow morning at 10. Some of us have kids who don't like it when we have lots of evening meetings. So we're trying to not schedule all of our meetings for the evenings because my kids don't like it. My son's walked in here a couple times already to be like, are you done yet? So.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one more thing. I saw the email that went out, and I wasn't ignoring you, but Brad, specifically, like I think those are good ideas. And I appreciate it being pointed back to the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. But I wanted to make sure that the committee had a chance to look at some of these ideas and go from there.
Okay, and just in terms of like when meetings are happening, I want to make sure that people have some flexibility. If we have 6 committees and they're all having meetings monthly, I mean, it's okay if it's sufficient to meet quarterly, and if those are staggered, that kind of makes it easier to like hop between committees and see what other people are doing. So don't burn yourselves out, and then lean on the rest to communicate back to the board when you have needs. I'm sorry, I stepped on education. Is there an update from education?
I think
Jay had to drop out.
Yeah, I think Carol stepped away. I mean, I've been working with her on it. We've been meeting on Fridays in the morning. And I'm sorry, but I don't know. Sorry, Carol, I'm not sure when the next meeting is scheduled. You're muted.
Okay. What did we say? Fridays at 10, 2 weeks before our regular board meetings.
Okay.
It's not in stone, but that's what we did the last time, and that's what we're trying to work with.
Okay. All right. I'll circulate the loose schedule of when things are happening, just in case people do want to go to other committees meetings, just to be involved in more than in one thing. And I will halt it. So I'm going to be sending around this and also the when to meet. And is there any, and then the 2 letters? Is there anything else that it sounds like I was?
Let me second Mandel's question about the Zoom accounts. Like, do we have a limit if we do the cities thing of how many meetings we can schedule? Because if we've got 7 meetings a month, are we able to schedule all that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, I just hate not having the control over it. And I wonder, Brian, how recently did you schedule February? Today. I wonder if we could cancel that, and then, well, not cancel it, but yeah, maybe just go ahead and cancel it, and then try to use the city's account for all of the committees and for the monthly meeting. I think you can just do the monthly meeting for the whole year, and they'll just give you all of the times all at the same time.
And if you would share that, I'd be more than happy to do it, but you haven't shared it, so That's true. Trying to be proactive. And I will get that done, and I will make sure that it gets updated. So
yeah, Amanda,
outside of her comfort control room.
Amanda, I was going to say a wise person recently told me not to burn myself out, and I would really reiterate that comment for you. Don't keep it all to yourself. Just share it with Brian, and we'll be good. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you all. And it's very good to see you.
And I would encourage everyone to go look at the Central Park Safe Streets Committee page because it's up and live on the website.
Oh, you beat me to it.
Oh man.
Woohoo.
I keep promising to do things and then Brian does it for me. And I'm like, oh, I feel so bad to be so slow, but thank you, Brian.
Amazing. I can't wait to see it. All right. Good
work.
Congratulations
to Carol and the rest of the team.
Yep. Congratulations, Carol.
Oh, hey, Amanda. So one of the things that we haven't worked out and we've got, I would love input is, and I know we're over by 8 minutes. How do people feel about us linking to your email account versus the clunky way of so people can't scrape the page? So you can, and that was one of the things that we asked. So I don't know if we want to try it by linking our board names and committee chairs to an email address and see how that works. Versus, I noticed, Carol, you guys did put your email address. You can actually just put a hyperlink that when you click on the hyperlink, it'll open the email client and it'll have the email address there.
Okay.
So.
It's certainly cleaner, and if it has the same benefit of avoiding the scraping, it seems like.
No, if you have a hyperlink, that's just as scrapable as anything else.
Oh, is it? Okay, forgive me.
We have done at the American Planning Association, everybody has an APA.org, apacolorado.org address, but it's actually a Google address, just that it shows us an apacolorado.org, and it will connect you to that. I think it's easy to do. I didn't do this, but from my end, it's easy to use. It's now my 7th email account, but it can work. And then you can have, when you have transition in leadership, you can just transition the name of the committee to the next person.
Yeah. I think the big issue that we've been having is that the board members are regularly emailed by me asking for money. Stuck in a different continent. So if we can just, I don't know, it makes me want to just not have our any email addresses listed and make people use the form to contact us so that just stops happening. I'm just worried that somebody's going to be feeling particularly bad for me at one point and respond to it and we'll get taken advantage of. But I'll never ask you for money, people.
Well, just keep that in mind and we can talk about it more on the training. But right now there's a hodgepodge on the website, just so you know. So don't be critical of that.
Okay. All right. But we do have the option of having email addresses for each committee. I think that is a little bit cleaner just to have the committees and rather than individual people's names. I know that we talked about that and I can't remember where we left it. I'm sorry. Jeff,
I don't think we settled it.
We didn't settle it.
We can talk about it another time, though.
All right, we'll talk.
Let's revisit. I haven't gotten any phishing emails from you in a few days. So
yeah,
we're good.
It's been this week.
It's been at least a week since my last one. So.
Awful. All right, guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
All right, talk to you again soon.
See you, everybody. Take care.
Happy Inauguration Day tomorrow.
Yeah.
Inauguration Day.
Bye, everyone.
Yay.